Welcome to the 2021 Spring Entrepreneur Speaker Series. I am Shanika Turner. I'm an assistant professor of business administration here at Georgia Highlands College. I am the moderator for this series. And after our speaker is done presenting, we ask that you please type in your questions into the chat box at any time during his presentation, and I will ask those questions at the end. So at any time, please feel free to submit your questions. You can submit them directly to me, or you can submit them to everyone, however you would like. Our students in our newly launched entrepreneurship pathway are learning that entrepreneurs are not just business owners or business creators. They are innovators in their own fields. Elon Musk said, if something is important enough, even if the odds are against you, you should still do it. Our speaker today is a visionary who is extremely creative and passionate about his craft. Jay Carter has written projects for talents such as Carl Payne, Brad James, Karon Joseph Riley, Terri Vaughn, DC Young Fly, and a host of other incredibly well-known actors. In the last 4 years, Jay Carter has been responsible for creating and writing a host of TV pilots, stage plays, and films that have either already been produced and distributed worldwide or are in post-production. Jay Carter's most recent business endeavor is Freeli TV, the world's first free linear streaming app offering multiple channels with African-American focused TV series, music, videos, movies, sports, and more. Freely TV is 100% focused or 100% free and already boasts over 50 channels of hyper-targeted content focused on an African-American audience. No matter the interest, genre, or affinity, Freely TV has a channel for everyone. This is evident by its star-studded and diverse array of content featuring the most prominent African-American movie stars, TV stars, athletes, comedians, and social media influencers. Viewers are able to enjoy the 50 plus channels of entertaining content by accessing Freely TV in their living room via a Fire TV devices or on the go via the iOS and Android apps. Freely also has the added feature of an electronic programming guide that's very similar to cable and satellite TV programming guides and allows for its audience to see what's on now along with what's coming up next, just like regular TV. What an amazing app. And I don't know about you, but I already have the app downloaded on my TV and on my phone, and it's an amazing app. Jay, I just want to thank you for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Shanika, thank you for having me, and to your Highlands audience, thank you for taking time out of your busy days and schedule to kind of sit with me, and hopefully I won't bore you too much, telling you my story, but I don't know, like where to begin. I mean, I'll tell you from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I always kind of had that bug where I wanted to, if someone was going right, I kind of wanted to go left when it comes to ideas and creativity. And, I think everyone, even from an early age, they can point towards someone who kind of made an indelible mark on their lives and kind of, shifted their focus and kind of changed the game for them. So, I mean, for me, I started off writing in high school. And I remember my 10th grade English teacher, Mrs. Andrews, we had to write a short story for that class, and I wrote one, and then she after we turned them in, maybe a couple of days later, when class was over, she had asked me to stay after, and I thought I was in trouble. I was like, oh Lord, what did I do? Did I plagiarize? Did I, what happened here? I can't even remember. But she pulled me to the side and she was like, Jay, I read your short story and I loved it. And you should really think about when you get into college, you should really think about writing for a living and following that path. And I had never really given thought because I would just, wrote for fun. But, having that, and let me say, I mean, we're all creatures of affirmation, and we all have that need for approval. and for validation and to affirm, what we love to do and our passions. We want people to really recognize those things, right? Recognition is just a part of human nature and the human need. So having someone at 16 years old kind of affirm what I love to do, just skyrocketed me, on the path that I'm on now. And I don't know where Miss Andrews is today, but she still crosses my mind every now and again because, without her, I don't think I ever would have really looked at writing and being a content creator as something that was a realistic thing for me. So anyway, I went to school at Georgia State University, majored in public relations and journalism with a minor in English, because I wanted to still kind of have like a fallback from a business perspective, just in case, the writing thing didn't exactly work out for me. And then just through the years, I just cultivated my craft and did more and more. And so I would say in 2011, I was still writing more for a hobby and just kind of like enjoying it. I was in the business world because of my degree from GSU. And I watched a movie called 500 Days of Summer. And that's another, kind of like inflection point in my life. And 500 Days of Summer stars Joey Deschanel. And if you guys haven't watched it, just Google it. It's an amazing kind of like anti-romance movie. I would say it is. It's not your rom-com. It's kind of like your anti-rom-com. But that movie was so impactful for me from a script writing perspective. I said, you know what? I'm going to try this. I think if they could do it, I could do it. And if I could do it half as good as they did, I'd call it a success. So I ended up writing my first stage play called Complicated Melody. That was actually produced and had a good run in the Atlanta area. And then fast forward 2012, I wrote another stage play, and then another, and then another. And then, it kind of started to flow at that point. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to, move from stage plays, because we did stage plays because we just didn't have the money or the budget to do films. But then after we kind of, raised our stock up a little bit, I said, okay, well, let's start actually doing kind of web series and independent films. So we started doing that. And that's when, the networking came involved where my name started to get out there and the quality of the content that we were creating on the stage play perspective started to get out there. And then we started to really be introduced to, working actors. These are actors that are on major TV shows on major networks that really in the Atlanta area, because the film industry and the TV industry is booming so much, they were hungry to do things, and they were hungry to be challenged, and they were hungry to meet someone who could kind of match their passion. So we started to do independent films, and it grew from there. Just to fast forward to today on the filmmaking side, we have a major distribution deal with a very prominent independent filmmaker. Independent production company to produce feature-length films. And then we created Freeli TV, which Shanika, I appreciate you with that awesome introduction. We created Freeli TV, and that came about because, I'll say for anyone that's an entrepreneur, the first thing that you need to do is recognize where the need is. If you're the 100th or the 1000th thing, and there are 999 other things that are just like yours, there may not be a need for what you've created. But recognize where the need is and then exploit it and then maximize it. And so that's what I did when, as I was going through the filmmaking and writing, I saw from a content perspective, there weren't many platforms that focused on the African-American audience and the African-American culture. And the demographic was very underserved. For example, if you go to Netflix, if you go to Pluto TV, if you go to Tubi, Hulu, there's probably a line there of African-American content, and it maybe just be like that one bar but then there are probably 25 other bars where that don't focus on African-American content, that show more mainstream content. And when you look at it, you're like, man, as prominent as the African American culture is, why is there only one bar representing, the pop culture that we contribute to society? So I said, one thing I wanted to do is create something that fills that gap, and that's where Freely TV came in. And it's been about a year since we created Freely TV. We have over 50,000 active users on the app. Like you said, we have over 50 TV channels. One thing that you can kind of think of it as is if you have like DirecTV or a Comcast as a cable service, so picture it as it's streaming online, but instead of 50 channels that show more of your mainstream content, it's 50 channels that show content of African American experiences and cultures. So we'll have a movie channel that'll have African American movies on it. We'll have a stars channel, which will have celebrity TV shows with celebrities or movies with celebrities. We have a Beyonce channel. We have a music video channel. We have channels for politics and news. We have a beauty channel. We have a travel channel. So, just anything from an entertainment perspective that's geared towards the African-American experience. And then we all house it in a linear format, which means it's just like watching live television. So you've got a preview guide where you could go and choose what you want to watch. And okay, my favorite TV show is coming on at 9 p.m. on channel 122. Well, let me tune in and watch it. So that's the basic premise of Freely TV, and it's been wildly successful so far.
The Beyonce channel, that sounds like that's one of my favorite channels. I love it. Yeah, so I do have some questions for you. What motivates you?
It's the pursuit of success. And you can be successful in many different ways. But if you can find success in what you're passionate about, it's an automatic motivator. I mean, I eat, sleep, and drink Freely TV. I'm very passionate about it, and if I never make another dime off of Freely, I'd still do it because it's not, I have to get a job to pay the bills, right? But I would still do it because it's near and dear to my heart. It's something that I feel like from a public service perspective, it's impactful. From a financial perspective, it's also impactful, but it checks all the boxes. And if you can find something that'll check every box for you, it motivates you without you even having to create it. It's just an automatic motivator.
I agree. So I have a question. You talked about recognize where the need is, exploit it, maximize it. Can you talk more about that? Because that's something that we teach to our entrepreneurship students. How do you go about, looking for that need?
Yeah, it's really looking at the market. One thing that I did was, I looked at other streaming apps that were similar to what I wanted to do, like Pluto TV. And if you look up Pluto, they were purchased by Viacom a couple of years ago for like $340 million, which is, it's not couch money. That's not the kind of money you find under your couch pillows. I mean, that's pretty significant. I looked at another similar streaming app like Zumo, which was purchased by Universal for over $100 million just about a year ago or so. And so I saw that these types of apps were really trending. And there was actually, I noticed that, again, there was a shift of on-demand content, which is, content that you actually go and you find out what you want to watch yourself, like Hulu and Netflix. There was a shift of people who really wanted to experience was called lean back TV viewing. In other words, I don't want to spend, I think we've all been there. We spent 30, 45 minutes on Netflix trying to find something to watch. And then eventually you just go to sleep because you're tired and you're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to bed because you can't find anything. You know, people were starting to want to be programmed too, instead of having to find their own programming. So really the trend of going back to more of a traditional TV viewing was starting to occur. So when I came up with the idea of Freely, you know, I noticed that there was a shift there of viewership behaviors. And then also another shift, there were three total shifts. Another shift was people were experiencing what's called subscription fatigue. I mean, think about it, you know, you may cut the cord and not have Comcast, DirecTV, or Dish anymore. You may say, you know what, I'm just gonna look at all streaming content, and you're gonna pay for, you know, $15 for Netflix, and you're gonna pay $12 for Amazon Prime, and you're gonna pay $12 for Hulu, and $10 for, you know, Sling or something like that. And all that stuff adds up, and before you know it, you're paying $250 a month just to be able to watch something on your television or on your phone or on your laptop or tablet. So I noticed that people were starting to experience some subscription fatigue. So another need was the need for something for people to consume for free. And so, okay, so now you have people wanting to have their content programmed for them. You have people who want to have something for free. And then the third shift was, again, they're just the African-American demographic, which has so much spending power and purchasing power, was underserved. And so another opportunity was to serve that underserved demographic. So again, if you're an entrepreneur, you've got to find, you know, where your niche can be. And I'm not saying that you have to be a trailblazer, because there are other apps like that, like Freeli TV out there, like Pluto and Zumo, like I mentioned. But then, you know, generally you find out, okay, well, I'm not going to blaze a trail, but I'm going to do something that's similar to what's already being done. But what added ingredient can you throw in there to differentiate yourself? And for us, you know, subscription, it being free and more of a traditional TV viewing experience, that's common. Again, there are several apps out there like that. But what differentiates us is the serving the African-American demographic, which Pluto, which Zumo, which Stir, Redbox, all the apps that are like ours cannot say that they do that. So that's where we find our little piece of the pie that's just ours. And if you can find that, then for someone to want to maximize off of what you're doing or what's being done, they have to come to you to get it. They can't go to somebody else. You know, nobody else can. You can buy 1 million chicken sandwiches in the world, but you can only buy one Chick-fil-A sandwich. You know, you can only get that from one place. You know, you can try Popeyes, McDonald's, whatever. But if you want what Chick-fil-A is doing, you gotta go to Chick-fil-A. And so that's kind of how we carved out our little niche.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, everything you're speaking to is exactly what we are, you know, telling our students and teaching our students about finding their place in the market and finding, you know, underserved populations and different ways you can enter a market. So yeah, you're speaking exactly what we're speaking to and telling and teaching our students. I have some.
And let me say this real quick. I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Because the reason why that's even more important is because when you're a startup company, and everybody that's going to be coming out of, you know, college with these degrees and wanting to be an entrepreneur, you know, unless you've got someone that's going to say, hey, here's $100 million, go have fun. You know, unless you're going to do that, you're going to be a startup and you're going to be starting from a seed perspective and really growing it. Find your niche, because if you go out there and you're exactly like a larger company, they can scale way faster than you. Right. So find your niche, find that one little piece of the world that no one else can claim. That way you can scale at a slower rate, but you don't have to worry about competitors coming in initially and just scaling up faster and then just, you know, kicking you out of your own little place. Right. Now, like for us, we know that it's only a matter of time before somebody else creates what we have, but we have such a fast head start that for them to create it, it's going to take them a lot longer to get to where we are because of the head start that we have. If we started, right when someone else was starting, that had the, like say BET, or if BET decided they wanted to do exactly what we're doing when we decided to do it, they would have blown us out the water. No one would have even known anything about Freely. But because now we're a year into it, if BET does decide to do it, we've had enough of a head start to where we can still stomp with the big dogs. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I love that. You're giving us nuggets. We need these. Our students need these. I have some questions from the chat. You talked about your creating plays, creating movies. Can you talk more about what goes into creating a movie? What do you have to start with? What's the process of that?
I mean, any film, any great film is going to start with a great script. So that's foundational. You gotta tell a good story. So you gotta have a great script. At that point in time, whether or not it ends up being great has a lot of factors that go into it that may be in your control, but also may be out of your control. But we'll just kind of talk about what you can control. So again, a great script is something that you can control. Finding great filmmakers to partner with is something that you can control. So finding, it's not all about just finding a great director. You may be the writer and the director, but then you may have to ask yourself a very critical question. Am I doing this story justice by directing it? And it may, a lot of times our ego gets in the way. And that's one of the things I always make sure to check my ego. People ask me all the time, or they just assume, and I blame Tyler Perry for this, they assume that I do everything. They assume that, hey, you write, you direct, you produce. And I say, no, I write and produce, but I do not direct, because I have to have a very honest conversation with myself and say that I am not a director. Like I just don't have the skill set for it. And I wouldn't do my film justice by directing it. Now, you can always say, well, by directing it, I make sure that I get what I want out of it, which is true. But also, you can also find someone out there to direct that's of like mind and that you can collaborate with in a positive way. And he or she may actually get more than you ever could have dreamed of out of the film. So again, find great filmmakers or director, but also find a great DP, primary camera person, find great editors. Once you find those things, then it boils down to, okay, well, do I have the financial backing to make the film? And that's a big question. Because, what I tell people is, you've got to create, you've got to do it. Like, don't sit on it. So if you don't have the money to make a 2-hour film, make a 10-minute short based on the film. And there are countless examples out there of people that made a 10-minute short, took it to film festivals, posted it on YouTube, and it resonated with people so much, someone came in and said, hey, I will give you the money to make this into the feature-length film, a feature-length film. Do you have a feature-length script for it? Oh, well, yeah, I sure do. It started off as a feature-length, and I just made it a short because of financial reasons. And then you'll be able to get that opportunity that way as well. But yeah, the key is that you've got to surround yourself with really great people, and then also understand from a financial perspective, isn't it important for me to do this whole film for, a 2-hour film for, $5,000, or should I do a 10-minute film based on this for $5,000? And the quality difference between a 10-minute film that costs $5,000 and a 2-hour film that costs $5,000 is night and day.
I love that you talked about, the financial piece, because that's always, the big hurdle that entrepreneurs face is, how do I finance this, or how do I start this business? And you talked about how, some people make a short, and Ryan Coogler, wasn't he one of the, I believe he's one of the producer of Black Panther, of course, who did that. He went to the film festival and he was noticed, and then bam, now look what he's doing now. So that's such great advice, is, sometimes you have to start small and then grow. Another question I have from the chat is, what are some things that you are reading, or some material that you you view to help you along your entrepreneur journey? Oh, I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a good question. And what I'm going to do is there's a book. I don't even know, do people even read books or they just listen to books now? Is that still called reading? So there's a book that I read, and it's called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And I don't know if you all have heard of it, but Eric spells his last name R-I-E-S as in Sam. But that book is pretty much world-renowned for anyone that wants to be a startup, wants to create a startup company. I highly, highly, highly encourage you all to read that book or buy it on Audible and listen to it. It's a super engaging book, and it really gives you the roadmap to creating a tech startup. But you can apply it to any. I don't care if you're opening up a bakery, you can apply it there too. One of the things that he talks about is what's called the MVP, which is, oh man, don't quote me on this, but I think it stands for minimal viable product. And I could be wrong, but that's pretty much the general sense. So basically what it means is a lot of times entrepreneurs can languish in the mire of, I've got to make this perfect. It's not ready yet. My product's not ready yet. If I just take another 6 months to tweak this, right? Make this better, make this improvement. One of the things is you got to start off with the MVP, which is at a minimum, how viable is your product? Because you can say, I want to add all these bells and whistles and take 2 extra years to make it. But the reality of it is the consumer didn't even know that doesn't even know about those extra bells and whistles that you're trying to create. Allow for that to be a new version that comes out a year from now, 2 years from now. Then they can say, oh, wow, this company believes in continuous improvement. They're not just creating this product and just sitting on it. They've sent out a better version. One thing to kind of compare it to is video games. If you look at video games, every year they come out with a new version, right? That's bigger and better. Cars, every year they come out with a new model of car. Well, the model of car, upgraded model of the car that's always newer and better with more bells and whistles. They're not, I can almost guarantee you, they're not having an epiphany or a breakthrough every year saying, oh my gosh, I just thought of this new bell and whistle I can add for this new product. They thought about this bell and whistle 5 years ago. But their pace is different. They're scheduling it to come out year over year for the consumer. So don't try to make the perfect product. Make sure it's minimally viable and release it. And what you also might find is what you thought the consumer would want by all these new bells and whistles you're waiting to create, they may not even want it. They may just want the basics. And you'll find that you waited 2 years to release something, and what you did over those 2 years, that feature doesn't even resonate with the consumer. So, again, that book, The Lean Startup, will teach you those things, and I swear by it. So I encourage everyone to take a look at that and read it.
Thank you. I'm going to make sure I include that on our survey that we send out, because that's great. That's a great tidbit there. Some more questions we have for you. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
That's a good question. Who has been my greatest? I mean, there have been a few, and they're not all in entertainment. Obviously, from a religious perspective, God is my greatest inspiration, in the sense that I always stay humble and know that any success that I have just is not due to just my own doing. Family, so my wife is a great inspiration. She 100% supports what I do, and she partners with me with our success. Tyler Perry obviously is a great inspiration. And the thing that's interesting about Tyler is, like, I'm not a fan of his work, to be honest with you. I mean, if he ever wants to, collaborate, I'm more than happy to do it. But I'm not a fan of his work from a consumer perspective, but I'm a fan of his hustle. I'm a fan of his drive. I'm a fan of his determination. And so that's what I look to be inspired from when it comes to what Tyler delivers. And then, I've got, there's some actors like Brad James, like Karon Joseph Riley, that are inspirational because they hustle and they have that drive. And I'll tell you, one thing about Karon, and Karon's been, at one point last year, Karon was a regular on 3 different TV shows on major cable networks. And you go and a friend of mine asked Karan one time, you do so much. You're like the busiest actor in the Atlanta area with all these films and TV shows, and what you do from a quality perspective, you'll do a low budget indie up to $100 million film. You range the gamut. Why is that? Because a lot of actors will say, well, no, now that I'm doing this $100 million film, I'm not going to do this $50,000 film or this $100,000 film. I'm better than that. And Karan said he looks at each one of those opportunities as repetitions. He looks at it like it's a sport, and you cannot get better unless you put in reps. You can't just do something once a year and expect to be better. So he does 10 films a year, and he doesn't care about the budget, because each time he does it, those are reps, and he gets better. Practice makes perfect. He gets better and better and better. And so that's a part of continuous improvement. And so again, that's, that philosophy is a huge inspiration to me too.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Wow. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell people like your students, I mean, yeah, unless the opportunity goes against your values and your principles, don't turn it down. You can learn from any and every opportunity, paid or unpaid, especially when you're starting out. Don't get such at a perceived high level that you're turning down opportunities when you haven't reached a certain point, because every opportunity is a rep. It makes you better. And before you know it, because you've done those opportunities, when that larger opportunity comes and you've got one shot to make good on it, you're better prepared to maximize that opportunity.
Yeah, that's great advice. Great advice. Another question we have is, how do you generate your new ideas?
It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of Googling out there, but it's also a lot of strategy. I mean, again, recognize where the need is. Here's, and here's an example. Freely scored again a major distribution deal with a major production company and distributor. They saw our ability to cast projects and cast, and again, we're not casting, A-list actors, so to speak. We're not, Matt Damon is not doing our films, or Denzel Washington is not doing our films, but we do cast our movies with people who are, again, working actors on major TV shows. And so this distribution and production studio / company saw that we were really good at doing that. And they couldn't understand how we were able to get these actors and make a $50,000 film look like a $400,000 or a $500,000 film. And so they approached us and they said, hey, would you be willing to cast for our original movies? And again, they came to us with a need, and we recognized it, and we said, you know what? We haven't thought about doing that before, but yeah, let's go ahead and do it, because that's an opportunity to have an additional revenue stream that'll help Freely out. So we're able to take the money that we're making from casting their films and actually putting them back into Freely. So again, that's an idea that came about that was more strategic, in knowing that by doing this, we can indirectly impact Freely and put Freely in a better financial position. But yeah, I'm constantly thinking, constantly Googling, constantly looking for where the need is and where that underserved niche is.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for that. Some more questions. We got some questions for you, some more. Can you talk about, failure? And I guess the students asking, as an entrepreneur, if you fail at, something, how do you move forward or move past that?
Yeah. I believe, I always say greatness never comes from a place of comfort. It always comes from when you're getting stretched. It always comes from when you're being knocked down. It always comes from when you're being challenged. When you're successful at everything you do, complacency automatically sets in. It's human nature. When you're number one, everyone's shooting for you. And the number one company is not losing sleep at night trying to figure out how to get better. The number two company, the number three company, they're doing innovative things and cutting edge things, and they're taking chances and risks more so than that number one company because they've got a place they're trying to get to, right? So, and a lot of times that's born out of failure. So you can't have a fear of failure. Now, I'm not saying that you should not. I call it a start, stop, and continue. Like you should, when you start something, a new project, a new business, and a new feature for your business, always be in the spirit of evaluation. So start it and then stop to analyze it, be critical, and then realize, do I need to pivot? Do I need to try something different? Don't start something and then evaluate it a year later. Evaluate it a month later, 90 days later, to see if it's going where you want it to go. And if it doesn't, if it's a failure after 90 days, you have not invested so much to where you can't pivot and try something different. But again, sometimes failure challenges you to come up with something better. And so don't be afraid of failure. Everybody fails. Everybody, has an idea that doesn't quite work. I mean, there were channels that we created on Freely that we just knew would be awesome, and nobody likes them. So we took them away. And then there were channels that we thought no one would watch, and we just looked at them as kind of like filler channels, just to kind of fill up the preview guide, and they were hugely popular. So, again, always evaluate, always look, start, stop, and continue. And if you fail, that's another opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, these nuggets are amazing. These are great.
I'm making them up as I go along.
You're reinforcing everything to the students. I mean, you really are reinforcing everything. See, it's not just me saying it. I'm not just making these things up.
Right.
You have a question. It says, Mr. Carter, you mentioned finding a niche that is somewhat in its own corner so you can get that head start in developing a business or idea. Have you seen any ideas that have been looked over or ideas that could reinforce from a different perspective, similar to how you made a streaming service amongst the countless services already out there?
So the question is, I just want to make sure I understand the question correctly. So are there any other opportunities out there that may be kind of prime or ripe?
Right. Yeah. Have you seen any ideas or that have already been looked over, or ideas that, could be come from a different perspective that's similar to how you started your streaming service? Is there anything out there? I guess the student wants to know, is there anything out there, that you found that's been looked over?
Yeah. I think anything dealing with an underserved demographic. So, it's not just the African American demographic. It could be the Asian demographic. It could be the Indian demographic. There's an audience out there, and everything's so specialized now and targeted from a marketing perspective that. And let me backtrack and say, like with Freely, our profit model is advertising. We don't it's free to the consumer. So how we make money is through advertising. And it's because we've got this demographic that advertisers want to advertise their products to. And they know that, because they can come to us and say, all right, people who watch the Travel Channel, oh yeah, we're going to advertise travel products to these people. people who watch the glam channel. Okay, we're going to advertise health and beauty and makeup products. We've got a channel called Out the Box, where that's all new technology. So cell phones, headphones, computers. Okay, well, guess what advertisers or companies want to advertise their products on? Technology products. They want to advertise on the Out the Box channel. So, there are definitely opportunities out there with other demographics where you can say, okay, well, this demographic is served towards, this product is served towards this particular mainstream demographic. So maybe if I create this for the Asian demographic, and the Asian audience, that's a way for me to kind of like cut out my little piece of the world that nobody else is focusing on. So and again, that's just from like the streaming TV perspective, but it goes with any. I don't care if you manufacture, sneakers. If Nike has a pretty good hold on the general popular audience, or the general population, I should say. So maybe, have something toward, if you're manufacturing sneakers, maybe have something that, again, is geared towards a certain demographic or a certain age or a certain gender, to carve your niche out there, because you're not going to be able to compete with Nike. Ask Reebok, ask Adidas. You're not going to be able to compete with Nike. But you're probably not going to be able to compete at first with Reebok and Adidas, right? So find your niche. Maybe it's just you're creating manufacturing sneakers for women, because there are a lot of female sneakerheads out there. So maybe you want to go and find that audience, and then you can partner with the WNBA, or you can partner with the track and field organizations on your sneaker that's geared towards females. There are definitely niche opportunities out there. You just have to find what works for you.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. So the last question that I have for you is, can you just give your final, just last piece of advice for our students, our entrepreneur students, just, something a takeaway that they can, take with them after they leave this presentation?
So I'm gonna coin a phrase, or borrow a phrase from an entrepreneur by the name of Ernestine Johnson Morrison. She's an actress. She's a philanthropist. She's a community activist. She has a term that says, "Create, don't wait," and I live by that as well. There's always a reason why you should not do something. Always a reason. And we talked about fear. Fear can be paralyzing. But go, just do something. Create. Even if the world never sees it, create it. Because that keeps that continuous improvement going. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Again, it's all about reps. Get your reps in. Don't wait for the big opportunity. Create smaller opportunities that could lead to a bigger opportunity. But right now you're in such a great position as students to where you are probably, I'm guessing here, but you're probably not married with, as a student, you're not married with 3 kids or 4 kids, and you're having to, to provide and feed, dependents. You may be still a dependent where someone's still providing and feeding you. So from a financial perspective, you've got a safety net. So take a risk. When you're young, that's when you need to be the risk taker. When you're my age, you have to start thinking about, okay, how do I mitigate the risk? But when you're young, get out there, create, take risks. If it doesn't work, guess what? You still have 40 years of your career to figure it out. I've got about 15 years left to figure mine out. You have about 40. So take your risks, step out on faith, take that leap, and always create, and don't just sit on your hands, because you've got the runway to really take those chances and really, pursue something great.
Thank you. I want to just thank you so much for being here and sharing just your amazing glimpse into your entrepreneur journey, providing us with amazing nuggets for your students. And I definitely want to just thank you, Jay, for being here for us. And for the students and the faculty and community, I thank you all for joining us today. And this is our final entrepreneur speaker series for this semester. But don't worry, we will launch our fall speaker series in August. So we'll start back up in August. And just one thing, you will receive a short survey from today. So please make sure that you fill it out. It will come in your email. Again, I thank everyone, and I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanika. I appreciate the opportunity. All right, everyone, you all take care.